Hey guys, as usual, please like and subscribe. And if you like the content, please check out any of my other content, Star Wars reviews, whether it's Book of Boba Fett or The Mandalorian. And let's get into this. So this is an interesting show in a lot of ways, and in other ways, it's not so interesting. And I'm going to kind of do all 3 episodes in one of this premiere. I'm not going to give a ton of detail about what's going on in the show, partly because there's just not that much. Usually when I review, I kind of go plot point by plot point, but there's really not a whole lot of plot points to go by. The show does sort of drag out, which isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as we do get a payoff in the end. Right now, that's sort of the status we're at right now. And so when I was watching the first episode, I thought, so far so good. There's lots of conflicts, lots of sneaking around. The expansion of the Empire into, showing how they organize control over sort of corporations, security forces, this and that, sort of have control. Cassian, has his own issues. He's finding his sister. He goes to a brothel to look for her. I guess she must have been doing something like that, and then she's not there. And then these two guys follow him and go after him. He offers them money to leave him alone. They don't leave him alone, and he ends up murdering them, I guess. And so now he's a fugitive. So that's sort of the whole basis of the first 3 episodes is he's a fugitive. He needs to get off planet, and he's sneaking around, and the security forces of the Empire are after him. The acting is good. The visuals are stunning. The first episode is okay. They kind of jump into the conflict without really showing us Andor's character. I guess the mentality is, well, we've seen him in Rogue One, but my sort of take would be, well, Rogue One happens a ways after this. It would have been kind of nice to see him develop prior, instead of, are we suggesting that he's sort of the same guy? It's kind of one of these, so it's kind of like his character arc is, he is what he is until sort of the last half an hour of Rogue One, and then he kind of changes, which isn't really compelling, but whatever, that's what it is. I didn't mind the first episode, it was okay. And I was kind of like, okay, well, we'll see where they go with this. And again, it looked neat, and I like his little droid, and I like his situation. All that stuff was kind of cool. In the second episode, a lot of it I thought could really even just be thrown out. Like, the whole episode was almost kind of moot. Really nothing really happened plot-wise, really. You just sort of saw his life and stuff, and it kind of dragged on. There was a lot of flashbacks from when he was a kid, and most of them you didn't need. They were really unnecessary. I don't know what the point was. You saw what I think might have been his sister was kind of the leader of the group, and maybe that was the point of showing them, but then there's nothing really there. She just kind of gives the one other guy crap for not allowing Andor to get whatever she was going to give him. I don't remember what it was, but it's kind of just showing her dominance for whatever reason. And it's just too many flashbacks. It was really, you didn't need them. And then you had the scene with Buddy and the old boomer on the bus, which was super cringy. But, at the end of the day, you look back at this episode and you were like, what was the point of this episode? There was nothing really of value there. We don't really get going with the plot until episode 3. At this point, as much as they had some aliens in the show, and far more than they were in Book of Boba Fett, they kind of went the cheap route with them again, where it's just humanoid, or human beings with masks on, human beings with things on them. It wasn't really alien, like, Mos Eisley Cantina level aliens, you know what I mean? Different creatures and stuff. It was sort of very sort of chintzy in that way, and that's sort of been Disney's way for some reason. It's just their alien creativity really lacks. That's one thing I noticed as well. And then we get to episode 3, and Andor has a gun pointed at a guy who he doesn't trust and knows all about him. The guy knows all about Andor. This guy shows up. And yet, as soon as this guy, so Andor's pointing the gun at him, and as soon as this guy says, "Give me your comm link," or whatever it was, the thing, I guess, that would detect where he is, Andor just gives it to him with no argument. So here we are, we're in the middle of a sort of standoff, and Andor just sort of gives it to him, and you're kind of like, well, why would you do that? You don't trust this guy. You're curious about this guy. You don't know what's going on. You just sort of hand it to him. I felt that was really, really weird. So the writers, at that point get an easy ticket to an action scene with Andor and Buddy versus the Empire security guard. So instead of them working it out in sort of a more fleshed out scene, it's just kind of like, okay, here's my comm link, and now we're running away from the security guards together. And you didn't get a sense that there was really any reason for him to trust him, and the dialogue didn't lead anywhere for that to happen, so you're kind of left with this kind of like weird feeling like, okay, well, all right. And sort of that's where the episode takes off, and then you finally get some action and stuff, and they're running away and they're trying to get off planet. And Andor takes a blaster shot. This is mind-boggling to me. He takes a blaster shot and he doesn't fall down. It doesn't kill him. And this is a theme in Disney where they're minimizing blaster shots. Yes, we saw Leia take one in her shoulder in Return of the Jedi, but it incapacitated her basically for the rest of episode 6. So she was just sort of lied there and couldn't really do anything because it's very, very painful. Whereas he takes it, doesn't fall down, nothing, keeps shooting. That was really stupid in my opinion. I don't know what is going on with Disney and blasters. And another character is killed literally 2 seconds later from a blaster. Is Andor just a superhero that can take blaster shots? Like, the reality of it always was, like, if Greedo had shot first, Han would be dead. So it just doesn't, I don't get it. And the security guy who blasts him does it and then runs off like he's going to get in trouble. So the security guard blasts Buddy, the significant other of this woman, and then he runs away like as if there's some issue, and you're like, you guys are supposed to be in control. You guys are representing the Empire. What are you running away for? It just sort of took away from them. It made them seem kind of flimsy. I didn't really like that. And there's, you always want to give the impression that the Empire and the enemy of the people is competent, in control, not afraid of any kind of uprising. They're there, and they're them running away right after shooting a guy it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the purpose of that was. Then the Empire security guards continue to run around looking for Andor through the city on foot. This was another kind of strange thing, and you've seen this in Disney a lot now, where inner city ports are kind of fading into oblivion. If you remember Mos Eisley, and they had all these ports, and you could pay to park, and the Millennium Falcon was parked, and so you're within the city. And now it's like they always park their ships like a mile from town, and then they have to go on foot, and you see that in all these shows. It's very strange. And so they park like a mile outside the city, and yet they're supposed to be representing Empire security. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if they should have jurisdiction to go right in the city, right into a port, and they don't. And so they're running around on foot trying to get Andor, and you're like, it's just the writers created this foot chase, them looking around for them, but you still could have had that and had their ship there. It was really weird. Didn't feel very Star Warsy. That's kind of, this show doesn't really feel like Star Wars, really. It feels very generic. And at this point, the show can't be bad or good. It just kind of is. Visually, it's well done. The music isn't great. The story is moving slowly, like I said, as long as it gives us a payoff. I didn't like the writers using modern swearing, like what the hell is spoken at one point, and shit the guy says at one point, and that's totally antithetical to George Lucas's Star Wars. He never wanted slang and swearing from our world incorporated into that, and that's of course because you want that separation. This is another galaxy far, far away. I don't know why they would do that. To me, that's just kind of lazy. Like, think of something else, like make up something that seems palatable. I mean, Nerf herder seemed palatable, not because of the word, but because of the way Leia says it, and they just didn't do that. They kind of got lazy, and so it makes it feel generic. It doesn't feel like it's in the Star Wars universe. It really makes it feel generic. I mean, that's the word for it. After 3 episodes and an hour and a half, the total plot basically so far is Andor murders somebody, is a fugitive, and is saved by the old lady as a kid. With the flashbacks, right? She takes him away when he's snooping around that ship, and what I think was his sister gets shot. I don't know. And Andor is then helped saved by this other guy to get off planet. And he's the guy in the trailers that seems to be very sort of important to the beginning of the rebellion. There was no Mon Mothma, who was one of the things I was excited about, was this idea that we were going to see them, discussing and forming. Maybe they'll do that, but we're an hour and a half in and we haven't seen anything to do with the rebellion, really, other than just this Andor guy getting saved. It's pretty boring overall. It's, there's no grandeur, there's no big stakes right now, really, other than just Andor, and and we know what he ends up doing in the end, so it's kind of anticlimactic. The galaxy doesn't hang in the balance whatsoever right now in this show. And like I said, we know what he ends up doing. So it's very generic right now. I'm not sure there's a way to make this interesting. Ultimately, we'll see if they can. Maybe they will. I don't know. So it's kind of one of those things where they had a premiere where they had an opportunity to really sort of set a tone, and the tone right now is we don't know. We don't know what to think. It's not really good. It's not really a bad show. It just kind of is. Yeah, there's some things that I've discussed, I've nitpicked that are disappointing, but the show doesn't necessarily become bad because of those things. We just don't really know, and I'm okay with the slow burn. I really love Blade Runner 2049. I love the way that movie ended and the twist at the end and all that stuff. That's cool. That's fine if that's where we're going with this. But because it's a prequel to Rogue One, you kind of do one of these. I'm predicting that it's guaranteed they're going to put Darth Vader in this at some point, because that's what they do. They do the quick little Darth Vader cameo and everything that they do, and that's why they do everything in this era, because they have to have that Darth Vader cameo and then sell a bunch of Darth Vader toys. So I fully expect that to happen. But again, pretty anticlimactic premiere, not much there. Typical storylines, fugitive, blah, blah, blah. We've seen this. So where are they going to go? I don't know. How are they going to make it interesting? I don't know. I think it's going to be really difficult at this point. But again, ultimate verdict, it's okay, but it is pretty slow. And if you're not into that, and if you want a lot of action and a lot of plot movement, quick pacing, this is just not going to work for you. The show is not going to work for you. It just isn't. It doesn't necessarily make it bad. Lots of people like the slower pacing. They're okay with that. But just letting you know. So anyways, that's my review, guys. Thanks for watching and have a good day.